Imagine taking $50 in cold hard cash and throwing it straight into a fire. Now imagine doing that every single second of every single day, 24 hours a day for 6 straight months. Sounds completely insane, right? Yet that is exactly what the billion-dollar startup Quibi did right before evaporating into thin air. 90% of startups fail not because of bad luck or a bad economy. They fail because they fail the most basic math problems that a 5th grader could solve. Welcome to the unicorn graveyard. Today on Financial Traps, we are going to dissect the 5 lethal mistakes that will brutally kill your startup before it even gets off the ground. If you look at the surface of the Silicon Valley casino, everything seems perfect. The ecosystem is designed to look like a magical money-printing machine. You come up with an idea, you build a flashy pitch deck, you get on television, and suddenly venture capitalists are throwing millions of dollars at you. This is the norm. We celebrate the funding rounds and the massive valuations. But a valuation is just a made-up number on a spreadsheet until you actually make a profit. Underneath the glossy magazine covers, the reality is a ruthless mathematical slaughterhouse. Let us start with the first trap. Mistake number 1 is the market illusion, or failing the product market fit. The loophole here is human arrogance. Founders fall in love with their own brilliant technology instead of falling in love with the customer's problem. Let me explain it simply. It is like spending $10 million to build an artificial intelligence-powered lemonade stand, but deciding to place it in the middle of Antarctica during a blizzard. The tech is amazing, but absolutely nobody needs it. The perfect historical example is Juicero. They raised over $120 million to build a $400 smart juicer that connected to the internet. The machine squeezed proprietary bags of diced fruit. The escalation was massive, with top-tier investors hyping it up as the next Apple. But here is the crash. Investors soon realized you could just squeeze the juice bags with your bare hands faster and better than the expensive machine. The company was solving a problem that simply did not exist. They burned through a fortune and collapsed because the market voted with its wallet. Zero demand equals zero revenue. Mistake number 2 is the ego trap, or the co-founder deathmatch. In the beginning, dividing the company equity 50-50 on a bar napkin after a few beers seems like the fair and noble thing to do. That is the standard norm for many naive founders. But this creates a massive structural loophole. When times get tough, and they always do that, equal split becomes a ticking time bomb. Think of it like installing 2 steering wheels in the exact same race car. When you are speeding towards a cliff and one driver pulls left while the other pulls right, the car does not turn. It just locks up and launches straight over the edge. Power struggles kill companies much faster than any corporate competitor ever could. You have founders arguing over the vision, the hiring process, or who gets to be the CEO while the actual business is bleeding cash. When the core team shatters, the investors panic. They pull their support, and the company dies from internal bleeding. Mistake number 3 is ignoring unit economics. This is perhaps the most mathematically offensive mistake of them all. The loophole here is the dangerous delusion that venture capital money can permanently subsidize a flawed business model. Let us look at the infamous case of Pets.com during the original .com bubble. They were shipping heavy bags of dog food across the country. Let us break down the math. They would buy a bag of dog food for $10. The shipping and handling cost them $15. So their total cost was $25. But they were selling it to the customer for only $12. They were losing $13 on every single order. Imagine buying a $2 bill for $3 and telling yourself that if you just sell enough of them, you will eventually make a profit. It is pure mathematical insanity. The escalation happens when founders use investor money to cover these losses, hoping that massive scale will somehow fix the negative margins. They spend millions on Super Bowl commercials to get more customers. But mathematically, if you lose money on one customer, getting 1 million customers just means you go bankrupt 1 million times faster. The system breaks because eventually the venture capital money dries up. When you are forced to actually rely on your own profits, and those profits are deeply negative, the whole structure instantly collapses into dust. Mistake number 4 is premature scaling. This is the virus that infected giants like WeWork. The norm is that once a startup gets a massive injection of funding, they feel the immediate pressure to grow. The loophole is confusing a large bank account with actual business success. So the escalation begins. The founders start renting out grade A office spaces in Manhattan. They buy expensive ping pong tables, cold brew coffee on tap, and hire 500 employees before they even have 100 loyal paying customers. Let me explain this simply. It is exactly like strapping a massive military-grade jet engine onto a plastic toddler's tricycle. The moment you hit the thrust, the structure cannot handle the power, and the entire thing rips itself apart into 1,000 pieces. You build a massive corporate infrastructure for a business that does not structurally exist yet. The crash is inevitable. When the hype fades and the revenue does not catch up to the massive monthly expenses, you have to fire 80% of your staff. The morale is destroyed, the culture is dead, and the company becomes a zombie. Mistake number 5 is ignoring the runway. In startup terms, the runway is how many months you have left before your bank account hits absolute zero. The loophole is the toxic assumption that the venture capital ATM will always stay open. Founders get arrogant and stop watching the daily cash flow. But here is the brutal reality. Building a startup while ignoring your burn rate is exactly like jumping out of an airplane at 10,000 feet and hoping you can knit your parachute before you hit the ground. When the macroeconomic environment shifts like it is doing right now, interest rates rise and investors panic. Suddenly, that easy money completely disappears. The crash is sudden and violent. You go to the bank to make payroll, and the money is simply not there. Math does not care about your dreams or your passion. Zero cash equals absolute death. Let us look back at the historical loop. From the dot-com bubble of 2000 to the zero-interest tech bubble of 2021, the mathematical rules have never changed. The financial system is perfectly designed to slaughter dreamers who refuse to calculate. The unicorn graveyard is filled with brilliant people who built products nobody wanted, fought with their partners, ignored their unit economics, scaled too fast, and forgot to check their bank accounts. If you do not intimately understand the flow of money, you have absolutely no business playing the startup game. Do not let your company become just another statistic in the graveyard. If you want to survive the brutal realities of the business world, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment down below about which startup failure shocked you the most. Next time on Financial Traps, we are diving into one of the most insane financial crimes in modern history, and breaking down the mathematical delusion behind the collapse of FTX. You will not want to